Hi, it's John Vu, and this lesson is on quarter note triplets. So triplets are when we play 3 notes in the time of 2 notes. So when we play quarter note triplets, we're playing 3 quarter notes in the time of 2 quarter notes. Okay, so if we play in simple time with a beat that's a quarter note in length, 2 quarter notes are played over 2 beats. So we just play them 1, 2. Okay, so when we play quarter note triplets, we need to play 3 evenly spaced notes over 2 beats. Okay, now the best way to do that is to play 8th note triplets first. Okay, so remember, 8th note triplets are 3 8th notes in the time of 2 8th notes. So we're playing 3 evenly spaced notes per beat, which we count either 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, or 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a. So remember, there's many ways to count triplets. Okay, there's no official way. You just need to count them in the most comfortable way for you. Okay, so if you play 8th note triplets first against a quarter note pulse, I'm going to play a quarter note pulse on my left foot. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 8th note triplets, 3, 4. We got 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a. Okay, and then the next step to get towards quarter note triplets is to accent every other 8th note triplet. Okay, so we got 3 8th note triplets in each beat. So we've got the downbeat, the next note is 1/3 of the way through the beat, and the next note is 2/3 of the way through the beat. So remember, we've got 3 triplet partials. We've got the one on the downbeat, the second partial is on the 1/3 of the way through the beat point, and then the 3rd partial is 2/3 of the way through the beat. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to hit the first triplet partial on the downbeat, then we're going to hit the 3rd triplet partial on the 2/3 of the way through the beat point, which we'll call the A, and then we're going to play the 2nd triplet partial of the 2nd beat, which is 1/3 of the way through that beat. Okay, so remember, it's going to be spread over 2 beats. So you've got the downbeat of 1, the 3rd triplet partial of 1, and then the 2nd triplet partial of the 2nd beat. And then on the 3rd beat, we hit the downbeat, the 3rd triplet partial of the 3rd beat, and then the 2nd triplet partial of the 4th beat. Okay, so we're going to accent all of those notes. Okay, so we're still playing 8th note triplets, but we're going to accent every other 8th note triplet. Okay, and we're going to play the other notes as non-accents. So what I'll do is I'll play a bar of 8th note triplets, just playing them all at the same dynamic, and then I'm going to accent every other 8th note triplet. Okay, so that's going to be my lead hand, and I'm going to play non-accents with my non-lead hand. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a. Okay, so once you start to hear those accents, okay, those accents are playing the quarter note triplets. Okay, so that's the rhythm you need to start to kind of listen to and absorb and get used to. Okay, that's the thing with triplets. You really need to feel them. You just need to like hear them and feel them. Okay, so repetition and just really start to listen and feel how they feel to play. And as is the case with all triplets, we have a number 3 above the middle note of the 3 triplet notes if the stems are pointing upwards, and below the middle note of the 3 triplet notes if the stems are pointing downwards. And this number 3 tells us that the notes are triplets, so it distinguishes them from non-triplet notes. And as quarter notes don't have a beam, we can't beam the 3 quarter note triplets together, so instead we use brackets so we can clearly see which 3 notes are the 3 notes of the triplets. Okay, so when we play quarter note triplets, we're playing 3 quarter notes over the space of 2, which is 2 beats. Okay, we're hitting that downbeat of 1, the third triplet partial of the first beat, and then the second triplet partial of the second beat. Okay, so we're hitting these downbeat 2/3 of the way through the first beat, and then 1/3 of the way through the second beat. Okay, downbeat, 2/3, 1/3. Okay, so different points there we need to hit. So we've got 3 evenly spaced notes played over 2 beats. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a bar accenting the quarter note triplets, playing 8th note triplets. Okay, so I'm playing 8th note triplets, accenting every other 8th note triplet to accent the quarter note triplets. And then what I'm going to do is, in the next bar, I'm going to take the non-accent out. So I'm just playing the quarter note triplets. Okay, so first bar, 8th note triplets, accenting the quarter note triplet points in the beat, and then I'm going to play just quarter note triplets. Okay, so again, just really listen to them, get to know the sound and the feel against the pulse. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so you start to hear that quarter note triplet there. Da 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 da. Okay, so another way you can practice this is to play a half note or minim pulse with the left foot instead of a quarter note pulse. Okay, so instead of playing every beat, just play every other beat. So the 1 and the 3. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you know, quarter note triplets are 3 evenly spaced notes played over 2 beats. So what you can then do is play 3 evenly spaced notes to 1 hi-hat, okay, because your hi-hat's playing every other beat. Okay, so you got 1, 3. Okay, so if you play 3 evenly spaced notes to that pulse, da 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 da, that's your quarter note triplets. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so remember, they're evenly spaced, so make sure they're even and consistent. You don't want any sort of breaks or like stuttering. Okay, so just an even flow of notes, constant flow, evenly spaced. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then maybe try to go between both. Okay, so we've got a quarter note pulse and then a half note pulse. So we're just going to keep these single strokes. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so sometimes it's easier to practice against a half note pulse because you haven't got that second and fourth beat that are kind of hard to play when you're playing quarter note triplets. Okay, just because of the way the notes are lining up against the pulse. Okay, so I'd recommend trying a half note pulse first and then try that quarter note pulse. Now let's try just the quarter note pulse on its own. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's definitely tough to do initially, so take your time with that, loop it, repeat it. Okay, really make sure you feel that quarter note triplet rhythm. Okay, and then make sure you're lining up that downbeat of 1 and 3. Okay, you're really hitting that 1 and 3 tidally, hitting right on the downbeat. Right, and then in terms of counting the rhythm, if we return to eighth note triplets, which we counted 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, or 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a, 4 and a. Remember, with quarter note triplets, what we're doing is we're hitting every other eighth note triplet partial. Okay, so we're playing the downbeat of 1, 2/3 of the way through the first beat, and then 1/3 of the way through the second beat. The downbeat of 3, 2/3 of the way through the third beat, and then 1/3 of the way through the fourth beat. Okay, so in terms of the way we counted the eighth note triplets, we're hitting the 1, the at of 1, the and of 2, the 3, the at of 3, and the and of 4. Okay, so we can count these quarter note triplets 1 at and 3 at and, or 1 triplet, 3 triplet. Okay, so let's play them on the pad now and count them in those two ways. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 at and 3 at and 1 triplet, 3 triplet. 1 at and 3 at and 1 triplet, 3 triplet. 1 at and 3 at and 1 triplet, 3 triplet. 1 at and 3 at and 1 triplet, 3 triplet. Okay, so remember, it's great practice when you're learning a rhythm to count the rhythm. Okay, so that's another thing to practice. Just count it against the pulse. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 at and 3 at and 1 triplet, 3 triplet. 1 at and 3 at and 1 triplet, 3 triplet. 1 at and 3 at and 1 triplet, 3 triplet. 1 at and 3 at and 1 triplet, 3 triplet. Okay, so remember, you don't want to alternate between those two ways of counting. Just pick the one that you find most comfortable and then just stick to that. So 1 triplet, 3 triplet, 1 triplet, 3 triplet, or 1 at and 3 at and 1 at and 3 at and. Okay, so remember, there's no set ways to count triplets. Just choose the one that's easiest for you to do. Okay, so make sure you can count it. That's a great way to learn the rhythm, and then make sure you can play it as well. Okay, so you're comfortable playing that rhythm, that quarter note triplet rhythm. Okay, so to recap, quarter note triplets is when we play 3 quarter notes in the time of 2 quarter notes, which is 3 evenly spaced notes played over 2 beats.